Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you like this episode, please remember to hit the like button and leave a comment or two, then subscribe and click on the bell to receive notifications of whenever we release new videos. Also, please remember to share them to your social media.
Welcome back to Scary Bear Attacks. Today's episode takes us to a place we are all too familiar with. Nestled in the rugged landscape of western Montana, the small town of Ovando is surrounded by the Blackfoot-Clearwater Wildlife Management Area and some of the state's most breathtaking natural beauty. The area's geography is dominated by dense forests of lodgepole pine, Douglas fir, and subalpine fir, interspersed with patches of quaking aspen. Shrubs like serviceberry, chokecherry, and snowberry thrive in the understory, while the forest floor is home to edible berry bushes such as huckleberries, thimbleberries, and wild raspberries. This pristine environment is a haven for wildlife, including elk, deer, mountain lions, wolves, and most notably, grizzly bears. Montana's climate in late October is crisp and cold, with temperatures often dipping below freezing at night. The wilderness attracts hunters, hikers, and outdoor enthusiasts seeking adventure, but it also comes with inherent risks. This is bear country, where human and wildlife interactions are frequent, sometimes with tragic outcomes. Timothy Hilston, a 54-year-old resident of Great Falls, Montana, was an experienced outdoorsman and hunter. Known for his love of the wilderness, Hilston often spent his free time exploring Montana's vast backcountry and pursuing elk and deer in the Blackfoot-Clearwater Wildlife Management Area. On October 30th, 2001, Hilston was on a hunting trip near Ovando, a small community with a rich history tied to the frontier days. Ovando's location at the edge of the Bob Marshall Wilderness Complex makes it a popular starting point for hunters seeking elk and deer. On the day of the attack, Hilston was equipped with a rifle and a hunting knife. However, he didn't carry bear spray, a critical tool for deterring aggressive bears. Hilston had wandered the valleys and meadows for a few days before finding a bull elk that satisfied his goals. He painstakingly crept into shooting position, and with a well-placed shot mortally wounded the big bull. As Hilston watched, the bull bolted across the meadow, then slowed and staggered before tipping over in its death throes. Being an experienced hunter, Hilston checked the area for landmarks as reference points before making his way across the meadow. He found where the bull was standing before it was struck by his bullet and followed the blood trail across the meadow. At the edge of the meadow, where some brush and young pines had grown, he found the bull carcass and prepared for the difficult work of gutting and butchering the animal. As we've previously discussed on this channel, gutting any animal involves slicing its abdomen from the animal's anus to the top of its rib cage. On a larger animal like an elk, the organs of the gut weigh a considerable amount, so opening up the rib cage makes the job of removal of the offal much easier. To get through the breastbone, hunters can use a saw, a large knife, or a tool like a hatchet to pop the ribs apart to allow for removal of the lungs, heart, esophagus, and trachea or windpipe, all of which must be removed to prevent spoilage. Unbeknownst to Hilston, the area he was hunting was being patrolled by a 350-pound sow grizzly and her 125-pound yearling cubs. The bad news was, she'd picked up the scent of the elk's blood on the air. Now, this old gal was not unfamiliar with people. She was somewhere around 14 years old and had spent her entire life in the upper Blackfoot Valley. Each winter, she would den in the Bob Marshall Wilderness area to the north. In 1999, she'd been mistakenly caught in a snare trap by government trappers who were after a big-bore grizz who'd been eating cattle on a nearby ranch. Apparently, the run-in with the trappers may have left a bad taste in her mouth for humans, and today she was looking for food for herself and her hungry cubs. In prior months, the sow and her cubs had honed the fine art of eating gut piles left by successful elk hunters in the area. The week before, 6 members of an elk hunting party had returned to the location of the carcass they were packing out. The hunters heard the bears departing as they noisily approached and could see the bears had consumed about half the gut pile and chewed on the ribs of the elk carcass overnight. Alone in the wilderness, Hilston worked away, focused on gutting his elk. The sow and her cubs found the blood trail the bull had left as it bolted across the meadow. The evidence left at the scene doesn't indicate whether the cubs bolted across the meadow ahead of the sow and she responded to their cries after discovering Hilston, or if the three bears converged on the man suddenly. The sow ambushed Hilston from only a few yards, leaving him no chance to reach for his hunting rifle to defend himself. She leapt upon the hunter as he screamed, and positioned his arms between himself and the bear's jaws. In her furious efforts to end the struggle with the hunter, she clawed and bit at his hands and arms until she had access to his head and neck. A few days later, Hilston's friends and family grew increasingly alarmed when he didn't show up according to his plan. He discussed where he would be hunting and the time frame he planned to keep, and now was nowhere to be found. A search party was quickly organized, and search and rescue parties as well as local law enforcement began canvassing Hilston's hunting grounds. It wasn't long before wildlife officers began gathering evidence at the attack scene, and forensic analysis began. Hilston was dead, and judging by the track evidence at the scene, officers may be hunting 3 man-eating grizzlies. Officers removed the elk carcass to prevent other bears from being lured to the attack site. Culvert traps that were set out near Hilston's body were discovered, and within hours had been investigated by the sow. Her huge left paw print was indelibly left on the side of the trap in mud, but she avoided entering it. In addition to the culvert traps, officers set out 3 foothold snares around the attack site. That same evening, the sow and one of her cubs were caught in the snare traps, leaving the one lone cub to be tracked down. The fact that the sow and cub that were snared had returned to Hilston's attack site was a foreboding sign of their involvement in his death. They'd clearly claimed the elk carcass as their own, but may have also eaten Hilston's corpse if it hadn't been removed. Given the sow had killed a hunter and returned to the corpse with her cubs, all 3 grizzlies had to be shot and killed in accordance with management policy. There were many factors that led to Hilston's attack and death, including a food source, possible surprise, and the sow's protective nature toward her cubs. Speaking of cubs, our Cub Tier membership on Patreon, linked below, will give you ad-free early access to our episodes, and the $3 per month goes a long way in helping me continue to produce educational and entertaining content like this. Montana is home to an estimated 1,800 grizzly bears, primarily concentrated in the northern and western regions of the state. The Bob Marshall Wilderness Complex, where Ovando is located, spans over 1.5 million acres and is one of the largest contiguous wilderness areas in the United States. This region's grizzly bear population density is approximately 0.6 bears per square mile, making encounters with humans a regular occurrence. From the year 2000 to 2010, there were 27 documented grizzly bear attacks in Montana, 4 of which were fatal. These statistics highlight the importance of understanding bear behavior and adhering to safety protocols when venturing into bear country. After reviewing the facts surrounding this episode, I am left with a few questions for you. What could Hilston have done to avoid or prevent this bear attack? Should human visitors to the wilderness be allowed to defend their lives from bears, or is it an accepted risk visitors assume while there? Would it have made a difference if Hilston had separated the elk carcass in a fall immediately, or would the bear still have attacked him? Now that I think of it, that sow would have been following the blood trail as well as Hilston's boot tracks. I'll gladly read and reply to your thoughts, so post them in the comments section below, and let's talk about it.
Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider clicking on the like button and clicking on the bell icon. We'll help you know when we post our new episodes. Posting our video links to your social media profiles furthers awareness, and it's fun. We slashed our prices in our merch store, linked below, so check out the bargains there while you shop. As a member of our human community, remember to adventure bravely and be careful out there, especially in bear country.